Jeff Nippard, overrated. Tyson Eckel and Jim Ellie, underrated. Today, we're playing overrated and underrated. Hey, what's up? It's Tyson and Jim. We wanted to do something a little bit different today. We're not doing any philosophical discussion like we normally do. Instead, we're gonna do something super basic, like overrated powerlifting concepts. Tyson and I have had 20 years of collective strength training experience, maybe more. And there are a lot of things that powerlifters and strength athletes in general emphasize maybe too much. And there's a lot of things that they don't emphasize enough. So I recruited my Instagram followers to ask us some questions, and we'll bring them up, let you know our thoughts. Okay, so the first, knee sleeves. Oh yeah, I didn't even look at it. Okay, why do you think they're underrated?
I think they're underrated because I think psychologically the sensation of like compression and warmth, while it may not have like a huge performance advantage, I think it's pleasant enough that it's like, it's worth it. It's worth the $60, $90, whatever, to have like, have that.
The proprioceptive benefits are there, and I see in the fitness industry a lot of people talking about how they don't matter a lot more than I mean, I think getting new knee sleeves all the time is overrated, but I think using knee sleeves is underrated. I'm not into buying new knee sleeves every time SBD rebrands the same thing that they've been making for years. But if you feel like you benefit from that proprioceptive support, put your knee sleeves on. Okay, the next thing. Pre-workout for powerlifting. Or like, I guess lifting, anything. It's all powerlifting, kind of. Ooh, dicey. What do you think?
I take the words pre-workout as like meaning like a supplement. If you're just talking about caffeine, then I would, I think pre-workouts are overrated. It's overrated. I think they can be. In my experience in the past, I got like a little over-reliant on some pre-workouts, and so like I almost needed them to have a good session. And then when I fell into that loop, it was like, felt bad. So I think they're overrated because they can kind of lead to a dependency on them.
I think that they're underrated because there is a narrative about how you shouldn't use them at all, and that they, maybe influence your training too much, and that you shouldn't rely on them. And I do think you shouldn't rely on them. But additionally, if you're able to take, a caffeine, beta-alanine, creatine combo as part of a ritual, and that gets you into the right mindset, separates your work from your training or whatever you're doing prior to training, and allows you to fully commit and invest into your training session, then they're very useful. It's underrated. Singlets, like the type of singlet that you have.
Yeah.
So like, obviously you need a singlet, so like they're not overrated. They need them, but does the type that you have matter? Like, I know Inzer has typically like the more rigid. I know they have all kinds, but I hear a lot of people saying like Inzer singlets help with more structured squatting, or like hold you together more or something, and then A7 is more like that neoprene feel. I'm gonna go with the type being overrated. Maybe it's because I've only competed like 7 times or something, but I've never really noticed my singlet on me while I'm wearing it. I mean, I know it's on me, but it's more about how it feels to wear it. Like, I've tried the Inzers, they're fine. I've tried the A7s, they're fine. I've tried no brand. As long as it makes me feel secure and it's not ripping when I'm squatting and it makes my quads feel jacked, then
That's the most important. Does it make you feel jacked?
overrated or underrated training? Extremely expensive clothes so you look cool, but your info isn't cool, like on a reel or something that you make. Is it overrated to look good when you're making reels?
Sure.
Underrated. I mean, depends where your perspective is, but unfortunately, if you're making a stimulating video on YouTube and you got 60 seconds, I mean, I don't think you should buy expensive clothes necessarily. I think, okay, he said costly clothes. So, change it. Overrated. Expensive clothes are overrated. Tyson also agrees. I mean, I feel like we wear like the same types, like same 5 shirts like every week. And I encourage more people to do that. Have your summer t-shirts and then your winter, like lifting long sleeves or whatever, have a sweatshirt. The cost of production doesn't vary that much between the clothes that cost you $10 and the clothes that cost you $90. The main difference is labor exploitation. Hypertrophy blocks for powerlifters. Overrated. You tell it now. Tell them why.
Overrated for powerlifting because I don't know. I mean, I maybe a few years ago I would have picked the other one, but these days I feel like hypertrophy blocks are overrated because spending time focusing solely on hypertrophic qualities and then coming back to to strength force production. I don't know, man. I feel like I'm basing a lot off personal experience. Like I used to spend time doing dedicated hypertrophy blocks and dedicated strength blocks, and now that I've shifted away from that and generally have a little bit of both, and I'll turn up the dial on one or the other depending on whether I'm prepping for a meet, but it A is way more fun, and B, I think I feel like I'm better able to express strength, force output, while keeping the muscle mass like relatively high.
Also, most of the training that you're doing for powerlifting is equally as beneficial for hypertrophy than like a dedicated hypertrophy only block. I think what people usually mean as powerlifters is like a block where you're not spending as much time with the muscles involved in the power lift. So maybe like a back building. I don't know. It depends on your perspective of what that means. But I think most of your training should be creating, allowing for hypertrophy to occur. I think the shift is really about intensity. Do you want that stimulus to be really hard right away or hard later on in the set? So that's why I think they're overrated, because you should be able to do that all the time.
All the time.
Every day.
Every block's a hypertrophy block.
Yeah. Weight cuts. I think that they're overrated because unless you destined to be the top lifter in your meet the first time you compete, the benefit of weight cutting is really not there. If you want to practice weight cutting because you want to maybe become, maybe have the opportunity to compete at a higher level when you do develop your strength and your competitive skills, and that's fine, but just compete in a weight class that feels comfortable. You're going to enjoy it a lot more. You're going to enjoy the meet a lot better. And I think you're going to have a better performance too.
Agreed.
Okay. Accessory movements for beginners. other than the squat, bench, and deadlifts, like should beginners do other movements? Yeah, I already knew what Tyson was going to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what we've been chatting about for a while is kind of, I feel like if you've watched or followed our content, you know that we've been, well, I guess we're advanced lifters or whatever. Like we've been training for a long time and we are able to build our own training in a way that's effective. So I think that's where I feel like the definition of advanced is. It's more like your relationship with training and how well you feel like you can control the variables to get the outcome that you want. So if you're a beginner and you don't really know what works for you, it's probably beneficial to try out a lot of stuff, and accessory work is part of that, a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. So, you know, yeah, I think you should do as much accessory work as excites you. Electrolytes. I don't.
Electrolytes, good.
Have them. Make sure.
Eat fruit, drink.
Empathy.
Ooh.
Overrated. Who needs that stuff?
Boo.
Boo. I think as a coach, empathy isn't as. I mean, as a coach, I know that empathy is important, but if you're thinking about what's overrated and underrated, it's about like other people's positions. And I'm not sure that it's like obvious on social media that empathy is a critical, and that's not like a skill, is it? Like a feeling, like part of your personality to have if you want to be a good coach. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a capacity. It's a skill. It's a hopefully a fundamental part of being human, but maybe not. It's optional for some.
It's optional in there's a lot of narcissism that gets promoted on platforms that encourage you to be correct. And that's all most social media, podcasts, everything, like even this. I mean, luckily both Tyson and I are okay if you guys don't disagree with us, but I think there are a lot of people in the fitness industry that may prioritize like being right over making sure other people are feeling heard and understood. So like even as an athlete, being empathetic is really important, because relating to how other people experience training and then internalizing that and thinking about how you experience training, it can be really powerful as a way to kind of constantly self-reflect and evolve.
That's well said, like that. I don't know. I think you said it well. In that being able to relate to other people's experiences, both training and the conditions in which they're training in, and how that influences their training and the way they relate to their training. It can really help you better understand yourself and the way you relate to your own stuff. So if you can develop that skill set, that quality of empathy, you'll be better at expressing force.
Fine. A good coach. I mean, it's ironic because like I don't have a coach, but I feel like I have a lot of coaches, if that makes sense. Like, I mean, the fact that we have Zell Strength is, and I have access to you and Ziba and Safe. I come to you guys when I'm kind of curious about new training styles. I mean, prior to the competition, the conversations that we had really influenced the style of training that I implemented. And so I'm lucky that I have you and I have the team. But if you don't have, a team of awesome coaches, maybe hiring a coach could help, because there's a lot of perspectives that you don't really learn on your own. You need the input of other people. But it's beneficial if you have the input of someone that's caring about you and your progress and has nothing to do with them and their progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a real power in having someone like listen deeply to what you're experiencing, and that alone can do a lot. But like also them being invited to have like a collaborative effect to your training, ideas, yeah, it's a gift to have an outside perspective on your situation. And even just being like heard about, like, can just make your experience feel better and like just less crappy. But obviously having someone in your corner helping you make training decisions goes a long way too.
Hip hinge movements. Overrated or underrated? Not squat and deadlift hip hinge movements, like underrated or overrated. Say overrated.
Ooh.
Spicy.
You
go first.
Okay. Secondary hip hinge movements that aren't deadlift and squat.
Like comp deadlift and comp squat.
Comp deadlift, comp squat. Okay. Yeah, underrated because I think spending time away from comp lifts and gaining capacity in I guess, it's something like a stiff-legged deadlift.
Yeah, that's the secondary.
I think it almost like builds up a potential energy that you can tap into later, like once you circle back to or put more resources back into a comp lift, especially if you're choosing secondary lifts that address like some technical issue or a muscle that you need to bring up. You can get a lot of momentum in your comp lifts from that. So
yeah, I said overrated because they are very helpful. Everything ties into that I agree with. I just think that if you're not yet competent with hip hinging movements, squats and deadlifts on their own are incredible on their own. And while there are definitely times to add secondary movements to assist them, I do think sometimes the narrative is, well, if your squat and deadlift are weak at this position, then do these movements to train that. But also the squat and deadlift on their own are great movements to train that weakness, because if that's a weakness on that movement, every time you train that movement, you're developing your ability to push through. So overrated, but not useless. Breathing.
Don't need to breathe. Breathing's optional.
I think bracing, really.
Yeah.
Like proper bracing mechanics. I think they're underrated still. Like, I don't know. I feel like every week I see a video about how to brace properly, which either implies that it's an easy video to make or that a lot of people still aren't able to cue their breathing patterns in a way that helps create more stability in their core.
Yeah, I feel like, man, I don't know. So I used to put a lot of conscious energy into my breathing and bracing and really emphasize it too when I taught the powerlifting movements. And now I still, it's important and I teach it and I still choose underrated. But like, cause like once you figure out how much to breathe and how to brace, it changes the experience of the deadlift and the squat significantly. The amount of like pressure you feel in your head, the amount that you're able to like support the spine and move weight, it makes a big difference.
Heavy singles. Look, I get it that powerlifters, are training typically to maximize their 1 rep max. And so I think logically it makes sense that training similar to that specific skill is valuable, but at the same time, your ability to perform a single is not as correlational to the frequency in which you perform heavy singles.
Yup. Yeah, you should do heavy singles as often as you need to feel like competent and comfortable, like having confidence with that weight on your back or picking up whatever is really important. But once you have that established, I don't think you need to do it every week to be able to express that on a platform come competition day.
And we both have proof of this for ourselves and for our athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like proof. It's anecdote, but if the point is that the athletes are satisfied after the competition, we both have experience with that with minimal reliance on singles. Belts. Using a belt. Whoa. Spicy. Really?
I could go either way on it. Like, I feel like, I mean, you can produce more force with the belt. Like, your abs get to flex on something. There's better intra-abdominal pressure, bracing, support of the spine. Like, you can lift more weight with a belt. And you also want to have some competency of like how to breathe with the belt. Like the bracing, the skill of utilizing the belt most efficiently is important. So yeah, maybe final answer is this. I feel like there could be an over reliance on it, and also I really enjoy beltless training, but that's more of a preference thing than a be better at come competition day thing.
Yeah, I also think that's underrated in that sense too. Like, there's no problem with wearing a belt all the time. And I mean, there can become a problem depending on how a lifter is relating to using the belt. Like if, for example, you only use a belt because you don't want to get hurt, you know, that might be a time where maybe we should prove that you're fine and safe lifting without a belt. Like, just lift less weight, lift something you're comfortable with without a belt, and make sure that you do feel comfortable doing the compound movements, doing any compound movement without a belt, because the fear dependency or fear avoidance of pain is not something that we want to instill. But they are underrated because of their ability to help you increase force production through increased stability and intra-abdominal pressure. I think the last one is like equipment availability. I think is both at the same time. But I'll tell you why I think it's under, and you can tell me why you think it's over. So I think it's underrated because a great example is squatting here in my gym. You know, it's not, this isn't a competition environment. This is my laundry room. I mean, my super high scale gym. You don't need to know it's my laundry room. And the conditions of squatting here are vastly different than the conditions of squatting at a competition. And if I were to base my entire training around if I were to base my expectations on my abilities based on how everything felt here, I'd either be really hyped or really frustrated, because it feels like every time I train here, I'm getting less productive training because of all of the environmental scenarios or like environmental conditions that impact my motivation when I train here, especially my lower body. And in competition, it's like the best feeling ever because it feels so good. Everything's competition specific. I don't have to worry about the rusty bar that I have or the lack of lubricant in the what are they called, the ball bearings. So I think it's underrated if you've never experienced competition equipment before and you don't know the difference between what you're using and what the competition equipment will feel like.
Yeah, I'm gonna change my answer to underrated.
But tell you why I think there's value in the overrated aspect.
Yeah, competition specific equipment can be overrated in that. No, I don't know, man. Because when I look back, using like calibrated kilo plates for deadlifting just feel different, and so there's like a confidence in knowing like, okay, this is what heavy weight feels like with calibrated plates. It feels different, and then you have like the confidence of it. As far as just general training with competition specific equipment, I think you'll be able to make a better case for it than I can.
Okay.
Changed my mind.
Okay, I changed his mind, but I'm going to tell you why there's a case for it being overrated as well. In the event that, you know, you're at a gym that has both calibrated equipment and just pound plates, and you're waiting and spending so much time just so you can get the calibrated plate so you can wait for someone else to finish, then it's overrated. I mean, you're sacrificing time and movement quality for competition specificity. And if that ends up impacting your motivation because you know that every time you go to the gym, you've got to wait 2 hours just to start lifting. I mean, if you have a lot of time, that's fine, but most of my athletes wouldn't want to wait 2 hours to start lifting. So take advantage of the competition equipment when you can. It definitely makes a difference. But ultimately, most of the biological development, the hypertrophy that we're training for, and a lot of the technical development can happen with non-calibrated plates. You just have to remember that there will be a difference in the sensation of lifting with competition-specific equipment. So, any other ideas in your head?
Yeah,
one more. Okay.
Weighted pull-ups.
Underrated. Why do you think they're underrated?
Yeah, I mean, the lats are, they stabilize the humerus in the competition movements. I think having a more developed back from weighted pull-ups, the experience of, I'd say all three of them, but especially deadlifting, there's like a tangible difference in terms of like how the weight feels on my back or through my back. It's significantly more pleasant.
I literally just had a call with my client this morning about like deadlift variations that aren't deadlifting movements, like deadlifting exercises that help the deadlift that aren't the deadlift, or stiff legged variations. And I was like, I think weighted pull-ups, like it is hard to convince an athlete that might not be able to do like a lot of body weight pull-ups to do weighted pull-ups, but as Tyson has proven to me and to Abby, once you can do like 1 or 2 body weight pull-ups, you can start loading weighted pull-ups. Even if you just start with like 2.5 or 5 pounds. The sensation of having something kind of center you with the weight belt, it increases motivation, and I think it literally increases drive to the lats and to the biceps. And then once you do get really good at them, that's when you start noticing like what Tyson's talking about with the one thing is like the grip is very similar. The strain on your grip with a weighted pull-up is very similar to pulling the bar off the ground. And being able to confidently add like 70 pounds to your body weight and pull up to the bar, it gives you a lot of confidence to be able to handle a lot of load with a deadlift bar or whatever during your deadlift. And also having wide lats is nice, especially when you can't grow any taller. So, and it's fun. Like once you get good at them, you just keep getting better. It's like the progress I've made on weighted pull-ups is faster than any other exercise I've ever done in my life. So I've added like 70 pounds to my weighted pull-up in like 3 months. So didn't think that was possible. Yeah. Okay, if you guys enjoyed that video, make sure to do the subscribe button, follow, share with your friends. What do you think? Do you agree with us? Do you agree with me? Or do you agree with Tyson? And if you don't agree, if you have alternative thoughts, or you want us to do another one of these videos, then put down below some things you think are underrated or overrated. And we'll see you in the next video.